And welcome to another episode of the Dojo Show with your host, Sensei Marv. We are here this week, Sensei Jean, as well as Sensei Earl from Oyama Enomichi Karate, coming in here to talk to us today about their journey, their karate journey, and just share a little bit of history. So I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll be with you in a little bit. So I want to introduce our two guests. The first guest I have is Sensei Jean. Jean, are you Sensei or you Senpai? Senpai? Jean? Sensei? Sensei. All right, Sensei Jean. So Sensei Jean started training karate in 1988 with Shion Alfred DeGrazia in Brooklyn, New York. He achieved his first dan in 1998 at the Honbu. And then he continued to train with Shion Alfred once he broke away from World Oyama Karate. He has his third dan, which he obtained in 2016. He's worked as a bouncer as well as done a lot of self-defense readiness stuff. Our second guest also started training in 1988 in Brooklyn, Oyama Karate. He competitively fought from 1989 to 1992, where he was the East Regional champion 2 times, as well as a semi-knockdown champion, and placed third place in the 1992 knockdown tournament. So we're going to give it up for Sensei Jean and Sensei Earl. Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming and talking with me. I know that I kind of just sprung this up on you guys really quickly, and I just appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to just come and just kick it with me a little bit. With that being said, karate has been a foundational piece of my life. It's really impacted a lot of what I do. It impacts a lot of what I do on a daily basis. And so just wanted to kind of touch base with you guys and see what karate has meant to you, and just touch a little bit upon your journey. So I guess Gene, you want to go first?
So first, Sensei, great to be here. I really appreciate being invited. And to have my brother Earl here with us is absolutely amazing. So it's great to be here.
When was the last time we saw each other?
Was it the last belt test? Let me tell you. I'll tell you something. Let me tell you. We later on we might be talking about the books and stuff. There's nothing that clears your mind and makes you focus when you have someone like Sensei Earl standing in front of you. You're not worried about what's happening outside the dojo. You're worried about what's happening like 2 feet in front of you. That's what you're worrying about.
Awesome. Thank you. What about you, Earl?
Wow. I started karate in 1967. What? Because I grew up in New York, and in 1967, things were not as good as they are now. Uh, so I started taking karate, but in the process of taking karate, I just wanted to fight. That was the bottom line. I just really wanted to fight. Couldn't really fight that well, but I just wanted to take it. In 1988 as well, I wound up joining the Brooklyn Dojo under Shion Alfred. Um, and then that led on to some other things like the tournament circuit. And I was just very fortunate to actually participate. I won a few, I lost a few, and it was great. So I really enjoyed it. And we'll just save the rest of that for later.
Awesome. So talk to me a little bit about the training. Like, well, before we even go into that, have you guys ever trained any other styles, or like, do you have any foundational styles that you came from before training full contact knockdown karate?
I had some high school wrestling. I did wrestling in high school. I dabbled here and there. I tried a class here or a class there, and some of the things that I was exposed to, I was like, this isn't really what I was looking for.
Shotokan, Goju earlier on, then a little bit of Wing Chun and Tiger Claw, and then I wound up gravitating to Oyama Karate, which since 1988, that's a long time. I don't want to actually go any further than that. 80 is a long time.
Back in my day.
What?
Well, listen, I can't speak to 60s. I wasn't around in the 60s. I'm a young whippersnapper, but I will say my journey did start in the 80s. So I started in 1980. I was a little kid. I was a tyke over in the Spring Valley dojo. You guys were in the big bad city, and I was upstate. But we still, Oyama's Oyama. So
Oyama's Oyama.
no matter,
Yeah.
and you guys want to hear something awesome, which is really crazy. I don't know if you guys know Shion Wiliki way back in the 80s. He was the one that had the dojo in Spring Valley. So Shion Wiliki was the original sensei that opened up the dojo in Spring Valley. And I was a student in that school, right? And lo and behold, I found out Shion Wiliki was here in Raleigh, and I ended up teaching, and I still am teaching two of his great grandchildren, which is crazy,
Oh, wow.
right? You want to talk about full circle, right? Like, me training in his dojo and then having his grandkids. No, it's his great grandkids. I'm sorry. Yeah, that is full circle. So, it's just incredible. The seeds that were planted way back then, bear fruit, and they continue to plant seeds in the future generations. So I always
Talk
think
about full
about
circle.
well, which one of my kids is probably going to open up a karate studio? Would be crazy enough to open up a karate studio and pass this on. So, but it
Yeah.
may happen.
It
It may
probably
happen.
will, but that's just we gotta look at if you put the foundation in there, what'll end up happening is that they're gonna be willing to pass it on. It's just that they just have to make sure that they pass the ethics on with it. That's the one thing I didn't have when I was younger compared to like now. Now it's more of the philosophy and the ethics of the martial arts that's much more important to me.
Right. So let me ask you guys, because we're all skilled, reputable. I guess some of us more skilled than others. You guys definitely more skilled than me, but skilled martial artists, and martial arts is, we say it's a way of life, right? Like it's just a way of who we are. How has martial arts impacted you?
Well, yeah, for me, a lot of it is, to be honest, for me personally, a big impact that it was, kind of spirit of us. I use it at work all the time. The concept, you persevere even when things are really difficult. You may not want to be doing it. You may not want to be experiencing it at the time, but sometimes you just gotta, you gotta embrace the suck. You gotta suck it up, and you gotta move through it. That's been for me. I didn't really grow up with that kind of environment. I would say, like the environment that I grew up in, it wasn't really that wasn't really something that was emphasized. It was touched upon, but it wasn't really an emphasis. And you really have to, if you want to be good at anything, you really have to kind of stick with it, no matter what the obstacles are.
Push and persevere. Oh, thank you, great. What about you, Earl?
For me, I would say, well, my father actually learned in Korea. So when he was in the army, so I had somebody that was there that would make certain that I understood the philosophy behind it. And the one thing that he told me, which is really important, is a block. The best block is to not be there. If you're not getting hit, then it's not going to hurt. But if you got to put your hand there, you got to put your foot there, or something else, it's going to hurt. Now you may be able to withstand it, but it's a lot easier if you ain't getting hit. So, and that's kind of how I've approached a lot of things in life. Uh, and the most important thing is don't be there. Don't be there mentally. Don't be there physically. Don't be there to allow something to move you or to hurt you in any way. So that's kind of one of the things that I've learned through the martial arts.
Dropping jewels already, huh?
Well, I don't know about dropping jewels, but that's just kind of how I look at things.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit about your experience with full contact karate. Like what exactly was it that drew you guys to it, right? Because, a lot of times when people hear full contact karate, that is like, I need to run the other way. Like that's crazy. You know, we're like the kamikaze of karate, right? Like people look at us and we're renegades. But what exactly drew you to this art?
No, so for
Okay.
me, it's kind of funny. I took a different path than Earl, and Earl was one of the guys in the dojo, and I'm not just blowing smoke here. There were a couple of guys outside of Shihan that I really looked up to in the dojo, and obviously Sensei Earl was one of them. He took a different path. I was drawn to it because of it was a challenge for me. I did not have everyone goes in for different things. I did not particularly have the competitive spirit in terms of wanting to go into competitions and things like that. But for me, it was like a daily grind. Like, can I get in there and do it? Can I accomplish the day? Can I meet the goal that was set for by Shihan in the class? And did I perform okay? Did I learn something from that experience every time I went into the dojo? And typically I did. Whether it was a physical thing, whether it was a technique or an application, or like Earl said, learning how to get away from getting smacked, or something that Shihan would tell us during or after the training, and it wasn't always specifically about karate. So for me, it was a daily, it just felt good to get in and do it. And honestly, to be able, some of the training, Earl knows, some of the stair trainings and stuff we used to do were insane. But when you finished that training, you felt really good about yourself, because there were moments when you were training, you were like, what am I doing? This is really horrible,
Yeah.
And then you finished it and you felt great.
Yeah. Well, for me, and I really hate saying this, but I grew up as a kid who was somewhat of a bully, I guess you could call me, but I really wasn't. But I like to take on bullies. And I just wasn't as successful taking on bullies. So I kind of got into it for that reason. As I got older and I started in Oyama karate, especially full contact karate, um, it was because I was having a hard time in my marriage, and I needed an outlet. And Oyama karate gave me an outlet. It tired me out to the point where I had to, because doing the stairs, uh, running, I don't know how many miles from, what was that, from the dojo to the Brooklyn Bridge, and then doing those hills, and then doing switch kick drills. That was really hard. It just gave me something to look at and say, like, hey, look, I can do this. And I did. I don't know how I did it, but I just kept doing it. And that was great.
My next question is, what was it like knowing that you were training under a grandmaster or within close proximity? Because we are direct descendants of a grandmaster, right? To be able to say that you are a black belt from Soshu Shigeru Oyama is not something that can be taken lightly. And I mean, it's really viewed in high regard all over the world. For you guys, how was that? Like, have you really ever, or were you in that moment ever really think about the grandiosity of that moment, or how special it was to train in that era under that person?
Well, for me personally, I looked up, uh, what I did was that I looked up the lineage of my black belt, and the lineage of my black belt comes from Chugun Miyagi to Yamaguchi, and then to Masayama, then Masayama to Shiguru Oyama. Also, Jikan Funakoshi. I can't remember all of his teachers now, but all those people, I can trace my black belt back to Okinawa, which is where karate actually
The
started.
birthplace of karate.
That gave me a different perspective. Like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be special, and it is. It really is.
And yeah, and along those lines, I could tell you from personal experience.
Yeah.
Every time I went into Hambu, I was always kind of, what's the right word? Starstruck isn't the right word, but you felt it was just a different, um, it was just a kind of a different feel. I mean, you realize you were in the hub of it, you know, and that very few people really have an opportunity, you know, because there's schools all over the world. And, you know, we had a rare opportunity to actually be in the dojo in the Hambu, and, you know, and the training there and the people who were there were just, it was always a phenomenal experience, no matter how painful it was. It was always a, you know, a really, really good experience. And I always learned something when I went there. Just, you know, it was kind of a weird thing. Like sometimes, you know, Shihan's dojo had a very, you know, a very special atmosphere to it, and so did Hambu, and they were very similar yet very, very different. And it was just always a good experience going in there.
You know, I love visiting. I've never got a chance to visit the Brooklyn dojo, but I love visiting other dojos. And you're absolutely right. Every dojo had its own spirit and its own flair about it, but it was all essentially like the same thing, the same grit, the same, you know, sweat, but it just had different personalities. And and for those that are listening, Hanbu is the headquarters. But yes, I would say Soshu, even up until, you know, his last moments, he had an aura about him. I don't know if you guys felt it, but when he would step into the room, to me, like the air would just change. Yeah, it just the energy in the room changed, and it's just like he just had this presence about him, and it's just like, oh, you know. But yeah, it was an awesome experience, just being able to train in that era, in that epoch, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Uh, Being one of the fighters in that time, it was it was just very difficult because the training that we got from Soshu was a little bit different because it seemed though the guys were hitting a lot harder and
Well,
it
and
hurt
you
a
know
little
what,
bit more.
and you know, one of the things, you know, if you think about it, is, you know, with the dojo in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn dojo, you know, there was just because of the sheer size of it, there was less opportunity to fight different people. Where you could go into headquarters, and, you know, dear Lord, who's ever there that night, you know, you could be a wide variety of skill sets, a wide variety of intensity. You know, different people fight with different intensities. You know, and when you're used to fighting in a particular school, wherever it is, and then you go to a different school, you got to shift gears, whether you want to or not. So,
Yeah,
and they did hit it hard at headquarters.
yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. I will not deny that they did. For me, the Brooklyn Dojo had a special meaning because you had big guys there like Gene, who whether he wants to admit or not, he's big. Okay. Um, but the difference is that he was gentle and kind. He would push you, but he would not try and push down something in you that when it came up on the other side, it would be bad. So you had that was one of the spirits of the Brooklyn Dojo in and of itself, where we would push each other, but we would never try and really hurt each other. And that was not something that we always got when you went someplace else. And I think that was probably I think that's probably the big difference. Where in Brooklyn you felt safe. Anyplace else you had to really protect yourself a lot of times.
I'll say, you know, I've trained at other dojos and I've always felt safe. Like, but you know, there's always been that they're gonna push you. You know, like even black belt tests. You know, we go there and Shion Jose will show up and Sensei Shiger will show up, and you know you're gonna get a whooping. But it's not like it was, you know, in the '80s where you get kicked and you get dragged to the side. You know,
What?
like I got a beating. But I live to talk about it. Man, I don't know, maybe it's because I was a fighter myself, but you know, you did get a beating, but I never felt malicious. It was a never malicious, you know, and I'll say I feel like that's one of the things, like, full contact karate gets a bad rap amongst the overall karate scene because they see us as bullies or as being too aggressive. But we train hard, we fight hard, but everything's always done with intent and purpose. And it's always for us to push each other to be better. And at the end, it's always like a hug and, an embrace and a brotherly bond.
Well,
And
it's funny you say that. So Earl, well, I don't remember their names. I'm pretty sure Earl will remember this, but and I'm sure like in any dojo, we would self-correct people. So I forget who it was, Earl, but there were a couple. There was one guy in particular, and there was a belt test going on. And in the locker room, like Joey Lasitra, Earl, I think Roger was there. They were lining up because this guy was hurting, like wasn't fighting with control, and he was nailing some lower belts. And let me tell you, when these three cats, Earl being one of them, walked in front of this guy, he never did it. He never did it again.
Yeah.
He learned a very important lesson.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name.
You saw the whole.
I
remember the guy. I remember the guy, but I think that you missed a very important part to the subject because it wasn't just me and no, you said Joey. Joey wasn't there. I don't think that day. G Maraville was there. Susan King was there. Rob Jaffe was there.
Yes, Rob Jaffe. Yeah.
It was like not a really good thing to do because he was banging because all of a sudden he's banging on the white belts and the yellow belts because he's taking karate someplace else and he was just trying to show off his stuff. It was all about the same time. Could be another time, but he was just trying to show off his stuff. And all of a sudden we're just hearing like, ow, ow, ow. I'm like, what's going on here? And then they look over there and like, why is he doing that like that? So Xian had a circle and he and the circle was, everybody there, you got 30 seconds to fight him. So all the junior belts went first and he's banging on the junior belts and like they're like kind of like scared. And then it was my turn.
Now it's my turn.
And then all of a sudden it just stopped because he got stopped with a solar plexus shot. And I was like, no. Come on, let's go. Let's go. And then Gene started cooking. Rob Scott, no, it was Rob because Scott wasn't there that day. It was Rob Jaffe was next. And it didn't work out the way that he wanted it to. And he never came back because he was a bully. And we had to make certain that he understood that this is not what you do. And that was a very big piece of the puzzle. You take care of your junior belts, and if you can't take care of your junior belts, how do they progress? How do they grow?